What's up, guys? I'm super excited for two reasons. Number one, we're going to be looking at another really interesting puzzle where it's white to play and win. And number two, I'm wearing this t-shirt, which I don't know if you can see that. I just got this from the new Chess Vibes merch store. It's live now. You can go chessvibes.shop, or you can just click the link below. But we got a bunch of cool t-shirts there. They're super soft, which is important for me with t-shirts. I don't like wearing the ones that feel like sandpaper. And so, yeah, I really like these. This is just one of the designs. This is one of my favorite ones, but there's a bunch of other ones on there. So check that out if you haven't seen it already. But having said that, let's go ahead and jump into this puzzle. All right, so the first thing to notice about this puzzle is that black is going this way, okay? So what that means is all these pawns are stuck. None of the pawns can move, and actually a lot of the pieces can't move either. The knight can't move, right? The rook can't move, the bishop can't move, the rook can't move. The only pieces that black has that can move are this knight and this queen. And so if you want to pause before I start telling the solution and try to think through how could white possibly win this position, go ahead and do that now, and then we'll talk about the solution. All right, if you had a chance to think through what the correct solution will be, the first move is obviously to take the knight, because we don't want that knight to move around and then start allowing the pawn to move forward, get a queen, let the rook out, let the bishop out, because if black can use their pieces, of course, black's going to win. So we take the knight, which puts our king here, and now you'll notice that the only piece that black can move is the queen, which is great because we know that the queen just has to go back and forth. But now we have to answer the question, what are we going to do with our lone pawn? I mean, obviously, we're going to have to push it at some point and get something. We can't do anything else with our king, right? Everything else is defended. So the question is, what should we do? H3 or H4? And then once we get here, what do we need to get? Well, the way that we need to think about this puzzle is we need to find the weak spots in black's pieces. So which are the pieces that are undefended in black's camp? Well, this pawn is undefended, right? Because the pawns are going this way, so nothing's defending that. What else is undefended? You'll notice this pawn is also undefended. Now, why do I mention that? Well, by capturing one of these, we can create another weakness, which is actually the key to solving this puzzle. So see if you can figure out which of these pawns do we need to capture and what weakness do we create by taking one of those pawns. Well, if you said this pawn right here on c4, you are correct, because once we take this pawn, then this rook is actually undefended, right? Because this pawn is going this way, remember, and nothing would be defending that rook. And if nothing's defending this rook, what do you notice about black's king? It looks like it's in the perfect position for a smothered checkmate, right? So this should give us the first clue that we need to go down here and not get a queen, but get a knight. And by the way, if you're wondering, if you did get a queen, what would you do? Like, what would you capture? Yes, you could take this pawn. Yes, you could take this pawn, but then what would you do? Even if you took this rook, how are you going to checkmate the king? You can't do it, right? Everything is really well defended. So the only way you're going to be able to get checkmate is if your knight lands right there. So you might be thinking, well, isn't that a pretty simple solution? You push your pawn, you get the knight, and you win the game, right? Well, let's try it and see what happens. So h4, queen here, h5, queen here, h6, queen here, h7, queen here. We get the knight, queen here. Let's bring the knight over, queen here. Now, we want to go for this pawn, right? So let's go ahead and go right here, queen here. We capture it. Queen has to move. We go here. And black, let's just say, plays queen here. Now, what are we going to do? We obviously can't take it because the queen's defending it. So how do we make progress in this position? Well, that's actually a trick question. And the answer is we can't make progress at this point because there's an interesting thing about knights, and that's the fact that whenever they move, they always change color. So right now, this knight is on a black square. If I'm going to move it, it has to move to a white square, what does that mean? That means once I move to a white square, I can't attack another white square until I make another move onto a dark square, right? And what that means is I'll never be able to lose a tempo, which means I can't ever get this to be in a situation where the queen isn't defending the rook. I can move all over the place, right? I can move all the way to the other side of the board and come back, and it doesn't matter. You just, because the knight is constantly changing colors, you can never lose a tempo, right? I'm just gonna keep, making a bunch of moves just to show you. And here we go. I finally come back to the square, and look at that. Same thing. The queen's defending the rook. So how do we win this position if we can't lose a tempo with the knight? Well, to answer that question, we have to go all the way back to here. And after black played queen a1, we needed to play the move h3 instead of h4. That was the crucial mistake that I kind of just glossed over. But if we play h3, remember how we wanted to lose a tempo? We're essentially losing the tempo with our pawn now, so that later the knight is going to be ready and in the right way that we need it to be. So for example, let's see what happens now. It's going to be the exact same thing, except you're going to notice the difference. So that was kind of the trick to this puzzle. And now we're going to come over. We're going to come here. We're going to take this pawn. We're going to come back here. And notice how the queen now is already defending the rook. And if it moves, we've got checkmate. All right, cool. So we solved it, right? Not exactly. So let's go back a move. And some of you might have noticed that black didn't have to move their queen, because now that we took this pawn, they actually have this as an extra move. And now if we take it, queen goes back, we move our knight, queen goes up, and what happens now? We have the same problem, right? We can't lose a tempo with our knight. So what's the actual solution to the puzzle? Let's go back to the beginning one more time. h3 was the correct move, but after we go, we get the knight. We don't go immediately for this pawn. We need to capture this guy first. So let's see if we can change it up. We'll go here instead. We'll go here. We'll take that pawn because we don't want to have to worry about black wasting a move later by pushing it, right? And now we can loop around and go for this pawn. So let's go here. Let's go here. Let's take it here, here, and look at that. We get Zugzwang. The queen has to move, and now we can finally deliver the checkmate. So do you guys see how if we took that pawn too early, the fact that we left black that pawn allowed black to waste a move by moving it, and then it put the tempo back in black's favor, which is not what we wanted. So we had to take it right away and then hop the knight around, take it later, and deliver the checkmate. So the key was going h3, not h4, promoting to a knight, and also taking that pawn before this one, and that's how you can deliver the mate. So hopefully you guys appreciated that as much as I did. I think these puzzles are really fascinating, even though, you know, it looks really simple. There's not much going on. You just have to push your pawn and get a knight. Actually, it's not quite that easy. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed that, and I'll see you next time.